What's up, y'all? Welcome into another edition of DNVR Rams Live, presented by our friends at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Been a chaotic couple of days, been a loud couple of days online, but unsurprisingly, Jackson Brousseau, after taking over for Brayden Fowler-Nicolosi in the fourth quarter against the UTSA, has been named the starting quarterback for CSU against Washington State. Going to get an opportunity to prove himself really for the first time. I mean, this chance that he had against UTSA was really the only extended look we've ever gotten with him out there. I mean, small stints. I think he got in against Texas last year, maybe against like Utah State for a snap or two the year before that. I don't quite remember on that one. But we are going to give a lot of thoughts on that. I'm going to play some post-game clips from Jay Norvell. I'll also play some clips from today's press conference where he named Brousseau the starter. I'll give my thoughts on all of this, whether it can be enough to spark the offense, how much of the fault goes on the staff, and some of the other stuff that I think factors into all this. We'll get into takeaways. I'll give out helmet stickers for individual standouts, all that stuff you guys are used to as well. If you're watching live on YouTube, wouldn't mind if you would give us a thumbs up, say what's up in the Toyota chat, all of that. If you got any questions, comments, send them my way, and I will get to as many as I can. If I don't get to it right away, we can always star it and come back at the end of the show. Just first things first, before we get into some of the quarterback stuff, because that's obviously the biggest takeaway to come out of this weekend. I said that Saturday night with a little instant reaction video leaving the stadium. That was always going to be the biggest storyline to come out of all of this. Does feel like they dropped a winnable game at home. That said, they were 4.5-point underdogs in the matchup, so I guess they technically covered. I do think that UTSA is a really good team. I know that they don't have the brand recognition of some of the other teams on the schedule. I don't think they're a great team, but I think they're a good team. Robert Henry Jr. in the backfield is an NFL back in particular. Up there with some of the better backs I've ever seen in person. You know, Ashton Gianti, Jay Ajayi, Donnell Pumphrey, Rashad Penny. There have been some great ones in the Mountain West over the years that I've been fortunate to cover in person. Capri, but he is unreal. Today, Jay said that he feels like he's better than Jonah Coleman, the Washington running back, and frankly, I agree. Just some of the stuff that he can do laterally in particular, and then the long speed that he has in the open field. He's just a unique talent. I'm honestly a little surprised he didn't play a bigger factor on some of those teams a couple years ago, because he is nasty, and obviously got loose in the open field twice. I felt like the defense did a pretty good job containing him for the most part, but 2 rough plays, that's what he does. He has a 75-yard touchdown run in literally every game this season. Never seen anything like it. But he's a stud. I feel like the defense played really hard. Admirable effort by them to keep CSU in this one. The trouble was a lot like what you could say against UNC, and frankly, for parts of the Washington game, the offense was just anemic. There was no rhythm whatsoever. Brayden was a mess, ultimately got pulled, replaced by Jackson in that fourth quarter. And we saw the offense find a little bit of a spark there. They had a chance at the end to play for the win. I know it's highly debatable. Should they go for 2? Should they play for the tie? Saw a lot of fans online pretty upset about the decision to go for 2. I don't hate it. You got the penalty. You're at about the 1.5-yard line. I didn't love the play call. Felt like they got a little bit too cute there with the rollout with Taj Bullock. I just don't love taking away half of the field in an area where it's already condensed. UTSA, credit them. They did a good job of covering them. But I just mean with college overtime being so wonky these days, I mean, you got to remember after 2 overtimes, it just goes to alternating possessions anyways. So you had a chance to end it there. You had all the momentum. It's a gamble, but it's one that I can live with. I will say maybe a little bit of bad karma taking points off the board does feel like that rarely works out well for teams. I don't know. I'd have to see the stats behind it. Hopefully they'll have Jackson Warren and Jordan Ross back at some point. I did see some posts online frustrated about that. I understand. Warren had been in a boot for over a week, so that one wasn't surprising. Had heard rumors of Jordan Ross the morning of the game. That was validated pregame with those guys not warming up. We'll see, if they're back in practice at any point, definitely could use them. But it was encouraging to see some other guys like Armani Winfield and some of those other guys like Rocky Beers, get into the mix. Definitely Rocky's best game in a CSU uniform. Kind of getting into some of the QB stuff here and just the general, I don't know, takeaway from the matchup. It was a weird vibe in Campus Stadium all night long. It got pretty hostile pretty quickly against the home team, which is never ideal, especially with Brayden in particular. You heard pretty consistent booing throughout the night. You heard chants from the student section to get him out and stuff like that. On a human level, I genuinely felt bad for him. Now, I'm not trying to get on my high horse here or shame the fans. If you're in the stadium, you paid the price of admission, and you're watching crappy football for 2 straight weeks, you are entitled to express your opinion. I just didn't love how targeted some of it was. I understood the frustration. I mean, it was brutal, but on just the human side of things, I did feel bad for him. I've never really seen anything like that at CSU, so that kind of speaks to where we're at in all of this and just how frustrated a lot of the fans are. I've long talked about Brayden's arm talent and athleticism. I know some people roll their eyes when I talk about him having a high ceiling and a lot of athleticism, a strong arm. He's got great raw tools, and because of that, I have long argued that his ceiling, if all of it comes together, is the highest of any of the quarterbacks on the roster. Clearly, the coaches felt the same, which is a big part of why they were so hesitant to move away from him. That, and you're paying a guy 6 figures. You've invested multiple years in him. Like there's a lot of reasons why, coaches are hesitant. You don't want to create a circus unnecessarily. I'll play a clip here in a sec of Jay kind of talking about exactly that. But it just has not been working. And for whatever reason, I think there's a lot of factors you can point to when it comes to Brayden's development seemingly stalling, I guess is how I would phrase it. I just don't feel like he has shown a ton of growth the last couple of years. I think there's factors that have worked against him in all of that, and that falls on coaching. I don't think very frequently Brayden was in a position to maximize his strengths as a player. I don't think the scheme changes last year benefited Brayden's development or his talent. That said, I understood it because I do feel like it gave CSU a more realistic opportunity of being competitive and making a bowl game, especially once Tory went down. But it was not a style of football that was great for him. You try and come back to a more opened up passing offense this year, and he just looked out of sorts out there. He did not look comfortable in the pocket. It's not just the footwork, which certainly are an issue this year. They'd always been a factor with him, but the consistent struggles he had this year, it just felt like it was intensified in a way that we had not seen, and the offense just had no life whatsoever. Could not move the ball with any type of consistency. We'll get into some stats here later on, but I think at some point they just had to try something. I probably would have put Jackson in the game sooner, just because to me the writing on the wall was pretty evident from the beginning. And the third quarter especially was brutal. I mean, UTSA was just stacking the box at that point. They're daring CSU to throw, and Brayden couldn't take advantage of a couple of those instances that, basically took the run game out of it, because at that point they're putting 8 in the box, and you had to try something. Now, again, I've been very defensive of Brayden over the years, so this isn't going to be me like doing a bunch of backpedaling or like, trying to bury the kid, shit all over him, something like that. Sometimes guys don't meet their potential. And I think, again, A lot of that blame does probably fall on the coaching staff. I mean, he is the second consecutive quarterback that you've had in the program for multiple years and failed to develop. And I think that's fair to point out. I also think it's fair to point out that at some point, individually, you have to want to improve the things that you have consistently struggled with. And I just don't know if he has done that. I can't speak for him. But 11 quarters is a lot longer of a leash than Clay Millen ultimately got in 2023. You know, he got 3 quarters that season. That was it. He was done not even a full 3 quarters. And I mean, Clay was maybe a little bit dinged up in that game too. But, you know, I just don't think it's clicking right now for him. And here's a post-game clip of Jay Norvell kind of talking about that, what's not clicking for Brayden in this offense. Mentioned, you know, the footwork, the fundamentals. But this was from Saturday night.
No, I just think it's fundamentals, and it's not rocket science. It's the same things we've been doing for years, and so I just think he needs a break. He needs somebody else in there so he can see it. I'm hoping that he will, take a step back and look at his play and work on the things that can help him be better. And we're trying to do that. I mean, we're working with him every day. And so nobody wants him to be better than us. And so, you know, it's just, it's frustrating right now, the way that we've played the last 2 weeks. And so we've got to find a solution to that, and we got to help him get better.
So that was Jay on Saturday night answering my question on what is not clicking with Brayden. Really, you know, pointed out fundamentals. It's something we've heard pretty consistently the last couple weeks. We heard it again today. But, you know, Jackson came in there and it was just clear that he provided a spark for the offense. Now, what is his ceiling in the long run? That's still to be determined. Again, like from a physical tool standpoint and being realistic, from what I had seen out of him in scrimmage scenarios in the past, I hadn't seen anything previously that made me think he was going to be the savior. And I just want everybody's expectations to be tempered and somewhat realistic. But the thing is, you don't need to be Superman for this offense to be pretty good. And if he can just keep the offense on schedule, which was something he did far better than Brayden did, get rid of the football, you know, give his playmakers an opportunity to have a chance, that might be all you need, especially with what you're able to do in the ground game. I mean, all of a sudden, once Jackson gets some life in the passing game in the fourth quarter, you go from averaging about 2.5 yards a pop on the ground in the third quarter to 9 yards a carry in the fourth quarter, because the defense just had to respect you in a way that they really didn't for 2 straight quarters. Again, I don't know if he's going to be, you know, an NFL QB or anything like that, but he's a good athlete. He's got good size. He throws a nice looking ball, and, you know, he gave his guys a chance, which I think is the biggest thing that the staff has been looking for right now is just, can you just execute the simple stuff? And I do think you felt the team respond to him in a way that frankly felt pretty similarly to what we saw with BFN taking over for Clay Millen in 2023. It's not the only time we've seen that. I think you can look at Pete Thomas being replaced by Garrett Grayson back in the day, and that wasn't 2014 Garrett polished, you know, ripping the country apart through the air. That was still raw Garrett, who ran around a lot and had a lot of energy, but the guys believed in him because they had seen what we were doing just wasn't working. And at least this guy gives us an opportunity. And I kind of think that's where they're at with the team right now. Now, maybe Jackson is going to, you know, seize the day and he's going to be so much better than I ever anticipated coming in. I'd love to see that. I'm rooting for him. He's a really good dude. I'm not trying to put him down or anything like that. I want to be clear. Like, I do think that there is a reason the staff waited to make the move this long. And there's a reason they gave Brayden a lot of chances here to put it together. And that's that his raw tools are on another level, but it doesn't matter how high your ceiling is if you can't simply execute the offense. And frankly, we see quarterbacks going to the league all the time who've got all the raw tools, all the talent in the world. But if you can't execute with consistency, none of that matters. And right now, I think you would take elevating the floor of the offense and maybe lowering the ceiling just slightly, simply to find some consistency in a rhythm, which we have not seen at any point this year. Here is one more clip of Jay Norvell talking about, kind of why he had been hesitant. This was Saturday night, and, why he really doesn't like changing quarterbacks, because it can create a mess for you. And I think looking at CU is kind of a perfect example. You don't want to do it too soon, because you might just end up in the same spot in a couple weeks anyways, with the same guy under center. But once you start going, one guy to the next and back and forth, it can become a real mess. They waited. They couldn't wait anymore. Now was the time they had to make a change. But here is Jay kind of talking about that, not liking changing quarterbacks.
No, it was just, I felt like we had to do something at that point of the game to change the momentum and get going. And that's why I made the change when I did. I'm going to be honest, I don't like changing quarterbacks. I mean, Brayden's won a lot of football games for us. And so, it's just the way it is, and it's my job to, if people need to sit down and watch a little while, then it's my job to do that. And so, but I don't like making changes. It's not good for the football team, okay? And in this sense, it was. And so, we'll take a look at that, and we'll do what's best for the team for sure.
Again, we maybe have not seen the last of Brayden. We don't know. Putting Jackson in there doesn't definitively solve everything, but very clearly the offense found a spark. Now, let's take a quick break. We'll keep talking about this. I love seeing how active the Toyota chat is. Let me shout out a couple of partners, and we'll keep today's show rolling. All right. If you are looking for a sweet new hat to take your fit to the next level, maybe you're going to the game, maybe you're hitting the golf course this weekend, check out our friends Branded Bills. Whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, or tees, Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. They make really comfortable, highly durable and versatile hats. They look sharp with a polo like this, but you can just wear them with a t-shirt. If you're looking for gear to make your brand stand apart from the crowd, Branded Bills has you covered with the best custom headwear. Start your order, and their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel that you need. They've got a partnership with CSU as part of their campus collection. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Every time I read that, I'm always like, BBDNVR. Boo-doo-doo-doo-doo. All right. Raising Cane's, I want to shout out them as well. Do the game day the Cane's way, whether you're tailgating or cheering from the couch. Feel your crew with Raising Cane's. We're talking hand-battered, cooked-to-order chicken fingers, crispy crinkle-cut fries, buttery Texas toast, and the MVP of every bite, that, of course, is that savory Cane sauce. Don't forget their jugs of freshly brewed tea, fresh squeezed lemonade to keep the squad refreshed. I'm a big Arnold Palmer guy. Shout out the other guys. Arnie Palmy alert. Big plays, big flavor. It's how Cane's does game day. Rally your team. Make your next tailgate a touchdown. Raising Cane's chicken fingers. One love. Again, I want everybody's expectations to be tempered. I think at times the backup quarterback is the most popular player with the fans, especially when things aren't going well. You don't want to put expectations that he won't be able to live up to. But if he can keep the offense on schedule, if he can distribute the ball, get it in the hands of his playmakers, I like this team's opportunity to be right there in the mix. I mean, the defense really did play well. You give up 2 explosive plays. Unfortunately, both of them 70-plus yards, but that is an offense that moved the ball on everybody this year. So, I mean, they were going to get theirs. And frankly, if you give up less than 20 points at home, you should be able to score 20. That's winning football. That gives you an opportunity. I want to play another clip here from today's press conference. Last 2 we've played have been from Saturday night. This is first Jay Norvell confirming that it will be Jackson Brousseau as quarterback 1 against Washington State. And then I'm going to play another clip of him answering a question from me. Basically, if what he had seen from Jackson on Saturday night gives him confidence that the offense can be closer to what he envisioned. But first, here is Jay confirming it will be Jackson Brousseau as QB1 against Wazoo on Saturday night.
Yes, we have, and we're going to start Jackson Brousseau. So Jackson will start this week. you know, and I looked at a lot of different things and sat down and watched tape with Brayden this morning and showed him the areas that we need to see improvement. You know, I feel good about that position, and I did. I think we had a good position. We got a lot of guys in that room that have gotten a ton of reps, and we've added Taj to that room. So I think we're more talented in there. You know, we're still trying to get to the bottom of what's going on with Brayden and his play the last 2 weeks. We're going to coach him up. We love him. He's been a really good player for us. We're going to support him and coach him up. And the same thing with Jackson. You know, I think Jackson has a lot of respect for his teammates. He's the kind of guy that does exactly what you ask him to do. And I told him this morning, I sat down with him and told him how proud I was of him, of how he's handled himself as a backup. You know, it's not easy to prepare yourself every week and not know if you're going to play or not. And I think he's done a fantastic job of that. He did a great job in the game with his 2 drives. You know, I put him in the fourth quarter. We had 2 successful scoring drives with him at the helm. He made several really good plays, did things the way that we are coaching it, and had great execution. You know, and I told him this morning, I said, you got a lot of playmakers. You got several good running backs. You got good tight ends and receivers that are going to make plays for you. All we need is for you to do the things that we're coaching to do and execute. And so really proud of that. He gave us a chance to win the game at the end, and so he's going to get his opportunity this week.
All right, pretty telling there when you hear Jay talking about, you know, giving his guys an opportunity and executing the offense the way that we coach things. And I just think that Jackson did a good job of taking what was available to him. And that's not a UTSA secondary that lights up the world by any means. They had been torched by everybody this year. You really thought coming in, they should be a group that you should be able to move the football on. And, you know, sure as shit, excuse my language, but you change the quarterback, and now all of a sudden we're moving the sticks with consistency. Now all of a sudden those screens are working because you're, you know, getting the ball placement correct. You know, you're taking some of those crossers underneath. You're getting the ball to Maher. It just felt like Jackson is the safer route, if that makes sense. Like he's gonna do what the coaches ask of him. Now, maybe he's not going to elevate the offense in a way that in a perfect world, had Brayden gotten his stuff together, you know, had fully developed these last couple of years, had everything come together, you know, again, like I really do feel like he's a talented kid. I'm rooting for him. I know the fans, a lot of them at least are pretty fed up with him, but I am rooting for him, whatever comes next. Maybe it'll be at CSU later on in the season. Maybe he'll transfer somewhere else next year. Who knows? But I am rooting for him. I just think that at this point, when the difference in execution is that stark, you can't argue with those results. I can sit here and talk about ceiling and potential and hypotheticals, you know, all day long. At some point, it comes down to the results on the field. And I think that when Jackson went in there, you could feel the team perk up because they're not blind. They're seeing what's happening. You know, it was not working. It just, for 11 quarters, had been really, really rough and out of rhythm. And I think there's also a human nature of it, of like, all right, Jackson's a great teammate. He's stood by us for a couple of years. We're all excited for him to get his opportunity. We want to, you know, do what we can to help him succeed. But I mean, there's something to that, to the way a team responds to you. I mean, I argued that back when Brayden took over from Clay, that you could just feel the team responding to him in a way we hadn't seen with Clay of late. And it really is weird how similar it was to that Washington State game, you know, a couple years ago. You make the QB switch, all of a sudden the offense comes to life. You flash a little bit, sure, you still lose. Obviously, this one was closer than that one, but it gives you some confidence that moving forward, maybe we have the guy. Now, you know, hopefully in the long run, things pan out far better with Jackson than they have with Brayden. But I do think that there's reason to believe in this team still. And part of that is what Jay is about to talk about here. And that's just the fact that they have talent. You see it in the secondary. You see guys like Owen Long out there making plays defensively, even offensively. Yes, tough to not have Warren and Ross out there, but Rocky Beers would be a number one tight end on a lot of teams. Armani Winfield really has played well these last couple weeks. It's been highly encouraging to see him, starting to make plays with more consistency. Maher's had a rough stretch as a punt return guy, but he is a productive receiver, and he's fast as hell in the open field. When he is going to leave somebody in the dust at some point this season for 40+ yard touchdown, where he makes a guy miss and just outruns them, and everybody's going to They're going to be shocked, like, oh, little white guy out there making plays, but he really is the real deal at receiver. They just need an opportunity to show what they can do, and at this point, as much as I've talked up his potential, Brayden was not giving those guys an opportunity with any type of consistency. And obviously that's a problem. So at some point you have to shake it up. You've got to try something else. I think that they were smart in being patient. Again, I wouldn't have started Jackson against UTSA. I think Brayden earned one more opportunity just based on his loyalty to the program the last couple of years, his experience, based on what we'd seen in flashes. Like, I really do understand why the coaches were so hesitant to pull the plug, but at some point enough is enough. And especially when you factor in the temperature with the fan base and how hostile it was getting in the stadium, it just was not going to be sustainable moving forward. And at the very least, you have to give Jackson an opportunity to show what he can do, because he made the most of his opportunity, and credit to him for doing it. Here is Jay Norvell talking about whether what he saw from Jackson gives him more confidence in the offense being able to come to fruition or be closer to what he envisioned at the beginning of the year.
I think the thing about our football team is that we have good defensive players, we have good offensive players, we have good skill players, we got a good offensive line. We've got to allow everybody the opportunity to execute. And one of the things at quarterback is that you got to use the right footwork and you got to use the right fundamentals. The rhythm of your offense goes through the feet of your quarterback. And so we just need more consistent play there, so everybody else can be more effective. So to answer your question, yes, I think we just need quality execution from that, fundamental execution from that position that'll allow everybody else to be better.
For 2 weeks, when you're hearing the head coach talk about things like going back to basics, fundamentals, footwork, it's something we've heard repeatedly. That's not encouraging for a guy you've had in your program. And I've got a question here in the Toyota chat from Dylan. Justin, what are your thoughts on the coaching of the quarterbacks? BFN has seemingly looked worse every year. This is now 2 quarterbacks that these coaches have really liked and failed. Great question, first of all. I appreciate you tuning in. I alluded to this earlier, but I do think a lot of the blame does fall on the staff. While I do understand competitively why they made the scheme change last year, there is an argument that it was not thinking very big picture and that it was at the detriment of their quarterback. I also think that had they not played that way, the odds of making a bowl game less likely. And if they did make a bowl game last year, would Jay still be here? Like, there's a lot of different factors that go into that. But yeah, I mean, you have failed to develop 2 quarterbacks now who, at least on paper, had pretty high ceilings. Now, I think there's maybe, 5 truly good quarterbacks in all of college football, and there's another like 10 to 15, depends on the day, and then a couple of serviceable guys. Like, that is one thing I think we, despite having an overwhelming amount of data and proof like across college football and the NFL, we all want Brady out there, and the likelihood of that happening is just pretty slim. But especially, when you saw what they were able to do with Carson Strong, at Nevada, there were just high hopes. And to this point, it has not lived up to that at all. And it's been frustrating at times. I do think it's easy to Monday morning quarterback to, nitpick every little thing from the sidelines. I genuinely do think that Jay is a smart guy offensively. I think there's a reason he's gotten to this point. And I actually think some of the stuff he does is really creative and fun. The problem is they have not been able to do the basics. They just haven't been able to keep the sticks moving. And when you're not able to do that, it makes it tough to go deep in your bag. And I just think if you have somebody who can do the basics with any type of consistency, it might open up this offense and give these guys an opportunity to be competitive in a way that we all hoped for coming into the year, because I really don't think the Mountain West is that good. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe CSU is just another one of those teams in the league that's not that good. But what I see defensively from these corners, from guys like Owen Long at linebacker, I'm really intrigued. I still love these running backs. You know, I love seeing Armani come to life. I love seeing Rocky. Like, there is a world where this team basically doesn't even have to be that good and can probably win 6-7 games. But I still think 7+ wins is on the table. But it all comes down to how this team responds, and it's got to be immediate, because if they fall to 1-3, that just feels like a hole that's going to be too steep to climb out of, especially perception-wise with the fans, because I think at this point, Norvell has lost a lot of the good grace that he had established with the majority of the fan base. I think there's still some people, myself included, who are rooting for him. I will say that I keep getting people tweeting at me. I understand it. It's part of being a fan. I'm not saying you guys are wrong for doing so. I'm not going to be addressing your hypothetical coaching candidates. I think it's disrespectful to the current staff. I also think it's far from a lock that Jay is going to be gone after this year. There's still a world in which this team makes noise in the Mountain West. Maybe pump the brakes a little bit is all I'm saying. The one guy I will say y'all need to stop is Billy Napier. Maybe some of you are too young. You don't even know that he was an offensive coordinator at CSU with Jim McElwain. He hated living in the Mountain Time Zone so much. He hated not being in the South so much. He quit. He hated it here. He's not going to be the coach at CSU next year. I will say that with confidence. If I end up on Old Takes Exposed, so be it. But that's a hire that makes no sense logically, and it's a hire that just lacks important context from his tenure here. I'll say that. All right, let's take a quick break. Then let's get into some takeaways from UTSA. But let me shout out a couple of partners. All right. We've had enough time. We're almost full 48 hours from it. I feel like we can be excited again for college football to be back. Excited for Saturday night. State pride against Washington State. I'm honestly more of a traditionalist with uniforms these days, but I really do love the state pride unis. I love how much it pisses off CU fans that CSU did it. I love the uniqueness of it. I love getting featured on SportsCenter every time they break them out. But if you're looking to see those sweet unis in person, there are awesome deals. Tickets in the lower section for as low as $57 with our friends Game Time. The Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's easy to use. Plus, the Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Your fees are included. The price you see is the price that you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code DNVR for $20 off. Tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. I also want to shout out Toyota. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA. For generations, Toyota's built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails or hauling the weight of the world, there is a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Like the all-new 2024 Tacoma, the return of the Land Cruiser, Toyota offers 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive like the Epic 4Runner. They also offer more low and zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from. Check out the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Also, check out the many, many great Toyota SUVs. The RAV4, the Grand Highlander, all of them perfect for Colorado living. You can take them around downtown and still be, getting decent gas mileage and smooth sailing. You can take them and have the dependability of four-wheel drive in the mountains and stuff like that. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR. Toyota, let's go places. All right, our guy Evan wants to know, any thoughts about Curry at quarterback, still developing? He's not ready yet. Evan also says, obviously thought Brousseau looked good and happy to stick with him. Just curious on your thoughts on Curry. Yeah, I mean, Curry is a guy who physically, I think, has some pretty unique tools, and I could say some similar comments about, what I've said about Brayden over the years. I will say, not as big as Brayden, a little erratic in terms of his accuracy from what I've seen. It's early in the process. You don't want to rush a quarterback before he's ready. I'm far more comfortable going with Brousseau than I would be going with the young buck, and that's not to say that Curry doesn't have potential down the line or anything like that. The last thing you want to do, though, is throw a young buck into the fire before he is ready. George says, would be nice to see Kojo get going this week. Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's even playing at all is a testament to his toughness and his work ethic. Like, he's a dude that fully blew out his Achilles last winter. And when I heard that, and I was talking to guys in the program, they were saying best case, we're going to be able to get him on the field like late October, maybe November if we're lucky. So the fact that he's out there, on the field, and again, you don't want to rush him back before he's ready. That's a brutal injury. But if they can get him going with the way he runs, I think he would be a really big boost for this offense, especially, given that we don't really know how long Jackson Warren or Jordan Ross are going to be out this year. But yes, it would be great to have Kojo and Chui get it going here. I think that would be a big boost for the offense. I want to move on here. I want to get into some general takeaways. I can answer more questions on quarterback and whatever else you guys might have later on. But I did want to get into some general takeaways because while QB is the biggest storyline to come out of this, I do think there's some other key stuff we should hit on here. The first of which is the defense played really well. I know you gave up the 74 and a 75-yard touchdown, both to Robert Henry Jr. He's so sick. But the first one, it felt like to me was just schemed up perfectly. Great blocking. He hit that hole hard and he was gone. The second one, it was 3rd and long, so it was a little more frustrating. On top of that, I don't know how you let an athlete of his caliber get in the open field without somebody on him. I mean, he's quick, and he did a great job of, again, we talked about that ability to be agile and make guys miss laterally. His ability to hit the sideline after he caught that ball and then get upfield was really impressive. But the defense, especially in that second half, they gave you an opportunity. And the physicality has really stood out from this group for me. I've been impressed with the linebacker play. Owen Long is somebody I've been raving about going back to the spring. Hope you got your stock early on him. Currently leads the nation in tackles per game. A really, really good dude off of the field as well. But I've been impressed with the tackling and with the physicality that I've seen in the D-line, which was a little bit worrisome for me coming into the year, just given how much turnover you had there. The corners, I think, cover better and tackle better than any duo we've seen at CSU in a while. The physicality of Lamondre Joe, I love that dude. He's going to pick up some penalties this year because he's aggressive. So, like, he's going to get some penalties where he's a little too handsy and gets a defensive holding or a PI or whatever it may be. He's also going to, as he did in this game, get a pick. He's going to be really disruptive, and his ability to impact in coverage as well as coming downhill is huge. Jahari Rogers, Jay talked about this today, had a play where he came crashing off the edge, just drilled McCown, and then the next play, McCown just kind of blindly got rid of the ball, and that's what actually led to the Aiden Hector interception. McCown hadn't been hit a lot, coming into the game, and I felt like CSU did a good job of getting him out of sorts. They only completed a couple of passes, 4 passes in that second half, I believe, and one of them was that big touchdown to Henry, obviously, but I think the other were 3 completions for like a combined 9 yards. I mean, they completely took the passing game out of it. They did a good job other than those 2 big plays of containing Henry. I mean, he's going to get his. I honest to God, could have lived with 150 on the ground if it had only been the 1 touchdown. Giving up the receiving touchdown is a bit of a bummer, but this game was not on the defense. You have to be able to score more than 17 at home, and if this defense plays the way they They did on Saturday night against most opponents that CSU is going to face from here on out, including Washington State, who has been dealing with a quarterback carousel themselves. They're now at Zevi Eckhouse, who's the guy that I predicted in the preseason would be the starter. For whatever reason, didn't end up being the guy at the beginning. He was the only returner on the team. I'm not like trying to take a victory lap or anything like that. He just made the most sense to me based on experience. But I think if this defense does what they did against UTSA, most nights you are going to win. You know, I asked for 5 tackles for loss. They got that. I asked to win the turnover margin. They did that. +2 in the turnover margin. All of that was really, really encouraging. What was discouraging was the penalties. 11 for 115 is not winning football. I can whine about the offensive PI all I want, which was a ridiculous call. First of all, it wasn't a pick play. It was 2 guys getting tangled up. Second of all, about 15, 20 yards from the play, it was so far removed from the actual play, you couldn't even see it on the live broadcast. They had to go the alternate angle to even see the guys get tangled up. Trash call, took 6 off the board. That's a bummer. Would have been nice to have that touchdown instead of a field goal. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. I get all that. But fine. What about the other 10 penalties you had on the night? And again, you know, I'm sure a couple of them were ticky-tacky here or there. But the Rams are ranked 120th in the FBS right now in penalty yards per game. 76 a game. That's just not winning football. And they've got to clean it up there. Big shout out to our guy, Evan Hotzen, in the music. Evan Hotzen Music. Evan Hotzen. He makes music. For the super chat, much love in joining the DNVR Supporters Club. You are a longtime supporter of the show, and I could not do it without people like you. I really appreciate everybody. You've just got to get something going offensively if you're going to have any opportunity of even scratching the surface of this team's potential. It all comes down to finding some life offensively, because I think what you have on the defensive side is going to be enough to keep you in it most days in the Mountain West. You look across, these offenses, like there's not a ton of terrifying ones. Boise in their run game is always going to be scary, and in that environment is tough. UNLV's got some good athletes. I've got serious concerns about them defensively. That's another team you would, knock on wood, think you'd be able to move the ball on. I mean, San Diego State, you probably would have said the same. And then they came out and thumped Cal 34-0, which might be the most surprising outcome I've seen in any college football game in a decade. Shocking, that result. But Brousseau opened it up. It gave them an opportunity. There was a tangible spark offensively, and you hope that you are able to ride that wave moving forward. You're hoping that you're able to build off of that. Is he going to be an all-conference, all-American? I don't foresee that, but I'd love to be wrong, obviously. But I do think he's a guy that you can win with, and I think that at this point in time, it just makes sense to give him a shot, because what you've got in the trenches, what you've got in the backfield, in the secondary, it's good enough to be a legitimate team in the Mountain West. And I think UTSA is a relatively similar level of competition as to what they are going to face in the Mountain West this season. Henry's a better back than anybody they'll face, including any of the studs at Boise State, although Dylan Riley and his 5 freaking touchdowns was pretty impressive. But I'm interested to see what happens here moving forward. Couple of key stats I want to throw out for you guys. CSU 3-3 in the red zone. That's encouraging. Did not allow UTSA in the red zone, which is also encouraging and speaks to how consistently CSU was able to get off the field in this one. Now you do give up the 2 explosives for touchdowns, and that's the caveat that, yes, they didn't make it to the red zone because you gave up 2 long touchdowns. But I mean, the fact that they didn't get there any other instance, that's, again, winning defense. You've really got to credit this group for how hard they played on that side of the ball 2 weeks in a row, because this very easily, Northern Colorado even too, but this game very easily could have been a double-digit loss in a different world, where the defense lays down, they see the anemic approach offensively, and you throw your hands in the air. It's human nature. You give up at some point. And I think that's part of why you did have to make that quarterback change. Is you're going to lose the locker room if the results on the field don't count for anything. They've got to count for something. But yes, mostly did a really good job of getting off the field. CSU was only 3 of 12 on third down through the first 3 quarters. Explains a lot about why they weren't able to move the ball. They were 4 of 6 on third down in the fourth quarter. The 2 scoring drives was great from Jackson. You love to see that. What I love more than anything was just keeping the offense on schedule, not running into sacks, not missing open screens, stuff like that. I did a really good job of just taking what was on the table. Sometimes that's all you need, especially when you have enough talent around you. The Rams averaged 8.4 yards per carry in the fourth after Jackson came into the game. Stark difference from what they did in the third, about 2.6 yards per carry. And that came down to the fact that UTSA in that third quarter had watched CSU not be able to execute with any type of consistency in the passing game. They were daring the Rams to throw. Single high coverage. I mean, they were daring you to do it. And the Rams, they just could not take advantage. Finally, the CSU defense consistently had UTSA in third and long, gave up a couple of conversions early, really settled in. I might have already thrown this stat out, but they only completed four passes, in the second half. One of them's that 74-yarder. The other 3 combined for 9 yards. UTSA had 6 drives in that second half. That resulted in 4 punts, 1 turnover on downs, 1 touchdown. They had 3 3-and-outs. So, I mean, half of the time that UTSA touched that ball in the second half, the defense was able to get off of the field in 3 plays. Another instance where they get the stop on 4th down. Really, really impressed with the effort from those guys. And if they can do that more moving forward, I like this team's ability to make some noise in the Mountain West. I'm going to shout out some individuals, keep the questions, comments, etc. rolling. I'll get to as many of them as I can. Take a quick breather so our guy Dion can get that manual add in later on. All right. The player of the game in this one, you could go Jackson Brousseau, making the most of his opportunity. 10 of 12, really came in and executed the offense with consistency. I'm going to go Owen Long, though. I just think what he is doing defensively is unreal right now, averaging about 13 tackles per game. He's had double-digit tackles in every game this season. Pulling up the stats here. Maybe people thought I was being dramatic or I was being a homer when I was hyping him up in the preseason when I said he's the best linebacker in the Mountain West. And there's some dang good ones, by the way. Boise's got some good ones. Wyoming's got a stud this year that they brought up from the D2 ranks, actually, who's making plays all over the field. But Owen Long, 14 total tackles. That guy is everywhere. He just has a nose for the football. He's rangy sideline to sideline. I love watching Owen Long play football, and I hope that we are able to do so in Fort Collins for a long, long time because he's a stud. I want to give helmet stickers to a lot of different guys, including everybody in that defensive front 7. I think they did a good job of keeping Henry bottled up for the most part, aside from those 2 long plays, but he is going to get his. I want to give a helmet sticker to Lamondre Joe, 7 tackles, 5 solo in this game. I love how corners on both sides of the field for CSU are willing to put their nose in there and go attack the football, make a play. So many DBs these days, they want to play patty cake. They want to thump you with the shoulder pads. They're not going to try and wrap you up, make a form tackle. CSU's corners, they ain't shying away from contact, and I am about that as somebody who grew up admiring Champ Bailey, the greatest to ever do it. Not only would lock you down in coverage, best man-on-man corner I've ever seen, his ability to come up and impact the run game was just huge for those defenses for so many years. And Lamondre Joe with 7 total tackles, a tackle for loss, a QB hit. He had 3 PBUs. I mean, that's a really good game. And he had the interception, I believe, as well, right? I should double check that. I know that Aiden Hector had the other interception in the game. Oh, Robert Edmondson had the other pick. That's my bad. All right, shout out to him as well. Robert Edmondson and Aiden Hector both get helmet stickers for their interceptions in this game. I want to give one to Jake Jarmalowicz, who's really stepped up with AJ Noland out these last couple of weeks. I've been impressed with his play. 6 total tackles, 5 solo. He had 2 TFL, had a hit on the quarterback. Another guy who's really shown an ability to make an impact down there in the box. Jack Moran, young buck, making his dad proud, 6 total tackles in this game. I mean, we gave one to the entire defensive line, but I did want to shout him out specifically. Offensively, Armani Winfield, 6 catches, led the team, also led the team in receiving yards, 93 yards, 6 catches on 8 targets is a lot closer to the game-to-game production that I would like to see from him. I feel like at times last year it was more like 2 or 3 catches on 6, 7, 8 targets. And now we're just seeing him be a factor more consistently, both over the top and in the screen game, which is something that you should see from him given how well he runs. I'll give Tommy one. I know he muffed another punt. They've got to figure that out. There's got to be somebody else on the roster that can do it. If they can't, that's damning. But 4 catches for 42 yards. He had a good game as a receiver. Rocky Beer's first career touchdown, had his first CSU touchdown. Had his first CSU career catch as well. 4 catches for 38 yards. It was great to see him. I don't understand why it took 3 weeks to get him in the mix. I do know that he's been dinged up. I was questionable to even play in this one. So to get that performance from him, given that you didn't have Jackson Warren, given that you didn't have Jordan Ross, given all the instability at QB, that was huge from a veteran guy. And I'd love to see him be a bigger factor in the offense moving forward. Helmet stickers for both Jalen Dupree and Lloyd Avant. Both ran the football well. Lloyd Avant averaged 9.6 yards per carry, where, again, if you want to nitpick that last call, maybe just give it to the running back that's averaging 9.6 yards per carry at that point. I will give a helmet sticker to Taj Bullock as well. He had 5 attempts for 17 yards, but he also had the passing touchdown. Obviously, love to see that. He is somebody who is going to be a big weapon for this offense. You know, I've pointed out that maybe at times it was a little bit detrimental to Brayden's rhythm to consistently pull him off the field. I know some people had beef with pulling Jackson off the field in place of Taj. They've got a lot of plays designed for him specifically in those exact scenarios. So I don't hate it. He's a veteran guy. He's played a lot of football, and he's been productive for you this year. But helmet stickers for all of those dudes. Just kind of some final thoughts here. And again, if you've got any questions, comments, etc., throw them our way. Got in the Twitter chat here. What was the vibe in the locker room Saturday night after the quarterback switch? Unfortunately, unlike the NFL and pro sports, we don't get locker room access in college sports outside of like the NCAA tournament and a couple of rare settings like that. I have covered CSU football on the media side for a decade. I've gotten post-game locker room access one time. It was Boise State in 2023, and that was just because they wanted everybody to get videos of all the celebration after beating Boise for the first time. But based on what I've heard, based on what I witnessed in terms of body language and watching guys on the sideline and stuff like that, I do think that there was a spark. And, you know, Jay said it post-game Saturday night, the team responded to Jackson out there. And I think that kind of alludes to what you're asking me there. Jesus says, did the recent performance taint the move to a Pac-12? What's the PR like from the athletic department? Why would that taint the move to the Pac-12? I don't even understand the logic of that question, to be honest with you. Keep them rolling here. Just some final thoughts on UTSA. And again, you can keep the questions, comments rolling. I'll get to as many as we can. I don't think you need a generational quarterback to be a factor in the Mountain West. And if Jackson can, to use a football cliche, just do your job, if he can do his job, get the ball with consistency into the hands of those speedsters out wide, get the tight ends involved, not run into sacks, not take negative plays, not miss open reads. I think there's enough here offensively to be a team, you know, that scores 25 plus points a game. And with what you have defensively, I like the potential there. I would have liked to have seen some other guys get involved in the offense sooner than they have this season. But what we saw in that fourth quarter was much closer to what I had been clamoring for. You know, get guys like Rocky Beers and Maher and some of these people who looked really good in camp involved. Need to see more of that moving forward. Gunnar says, does the motto "we over me, the team wants to win" imply the team wants to win a championship? I mean, the team sayings are always just like some t-shirt type deal that, you pick at the beginning of the season. Yes, it's a mantra. Yes, you try and abide by that. But I mean, the goal is always to win, right? The goal every year is to win a championship. But it's just one of those like corny football cliches. I like it. I'm not saying I don't buy into stuff like that, but it is a little bit eye roll to me when it comes to stuff like that. I started some questions here. Who do we blame for the lack of discipline from this team? Talp wants to know in the Toyota chat earlier today. I mean, typically I put a lack of discipline on coaching staffs. I'd say the same thing about the Denver Broncos right now, to be honest with you. John wants to know thoughts on subbing out Brousseau for the 2-point conversion after he turned things around. I'm not going to Monday morning quarterback it. I, again, don't love the play design because I don't love taking away half of the field there. I don't have beef with the ball being in Taj's hands, though, because I think he's a good player who they trust, and he has a lot of experience. Brant's Ram fan 6 wants to know, what are the chances Jay gets fired mid-year? Anything is possible. I think his job is not in as drastic of danger as a lot of the fans are kind of alluding to. Part of that is my belief that the Mountain West isn't that good, and there's still a nice opportunity here for CSU to salvage this season and put together the type of campaign that would at least come close to what we were all hoping for. But, anything's possible. You fall to 1-3 here. San Diego State looked good against Cal, a game that for weeks and weeks we had assumed would kind of be a gimme. That's probably not a gimme. Fresno has really turned a corner here. They look like contenders all of a sudden. So, I mean, if you fall to 1-3, if you then lost, a couple of games early in the league slate, there's certainly a world where that could become a possibility. I've said a lot, basically, since the schedule was released last spring, that UTSA and Washington State were basically going to set the course for your season, because you assumed that realistically you'd lose to Washington, beat Northern Colorado. Optically, didn't look like any of us thought, but being here at 1-2 at this point was not an unrealistic scenario. And I mean, again, I don't use spread as end all be all for these type of arguments, but CSU was 5-point underdogs in this game. From a neutral standpoint, they were not expected to win it, from Vegas. Now, it was a winnable game, and it's frustrating that they let it slip away. I just think it's important to keep all of that in perspective. The fact that they're 1-2 is not shocking. It certainly would have been nice to see them do more, and I think that's kind of what everybody's been striving for, is waiting for CSU to do that, to finally not just kind of scrap out a couple of wins here and there against mid teams. Like, can you punch up a little bit, or even, just win with consistency is really what I'm hoping for. But anything is possible. I would say I don't anticipate it, especially anytime soon. You definitely don't want to do it before 4 or 5 weeks into the season, because you don't want your entire team to hit the portal and be able to, maintain their eligibility this year. That could be a disaster. Taup says, why do I think that BFN has regressed so much? There's so many factors that go into that. I think right now his confidence is just kind of shook. I can't speak for him, but that's what it looks like visually to me. He's got happy feet in the pocket. He's missing open reads. I just think he's uncomfortable out there. He has not been in a rhythm. Some of that probably stems from being in one scheme, then going complete, 180 last year, and now you're doing another 180, going back to kind of closer to what you did in 2023. I think a lack of continuity at receiver has hurt him over time. I think maybe also he got a little content. And again, I can't speak for him, but I haven't seen a guy who's done like everything in his power to maximize his potential. And at some point, you got to give somebody else a shot. And I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I am rooting for Brayden, whatever comes next for him. I feel like he's going to take a ton of heat, and that comes with the territory when you're the quarterback. You're making 6 figures. This isn't 1980. We're not playing for the love of the game. Like that does elevate standards to an extent as well. But I felt bad just seeing how the crowd treated him, because I don't think it's all on him. And I think that's a tough spot, especially when you're trying to find your confidence. Maybe I'm a softie. I actually know these people as humans. I'm not a faceless, anonymous account just spewing the most vitriol stuff online that you could imagine. Like I actually do know these people as human beings, but that's kind of where I'm at. Got another question here. Justin, did you think Armani Winfield was going to have a bigger impact this year? I mean, he had a really good game, 6 catches for almost 100 yards. It's tough to make an impact at receiver if the quarterback's not getting you the football. I think that's fair to say. And again, I'm not putting it all on Brayden, but I do think we saw the offense open up in a way that we just hadn't seen it in that fourth quarter. And I do think just getting the ball to these guys on time, in rhythm, where it's supposed to be, could give them an opportunity to look a heck of a lot more dangerous than they have at this point of the year. I guess we're in overtime, so let me throw it to OT real quick. Jesus says, would a lackluster season this year give you confidence on what Pac-12 move is going to be like? I don't want to be a bottom feeder in the Pac-12. I feel a lot better about basketball than football. I get you. Okay, going back to your question from earlier, I get you, Jesus. I guess maybe to an extent. Like I think that the decision to the Pac-12 is one I would agree with, regardless of what happens this year. You could go 0-12 this year, and I would still say being in the conference that's going to have San Diego State, Boise State, Oregon State, and Washington State is the side of the fence I'd rather be on than being with Northern Illinois and UTEP and some of these schools that the Mountain West is going to have to backfill with. What is CSU's ceiling in that Pac-12 compared to some of those other schools is to be determined. I mean, from a resources standpoint, I think CSU is pretty much on par with all of them. But when it comes to results, and over the last 20 years, like it'd probably be CSU, Utah State, and Texas State, like at the bottom. But also, I think you could argue like Oregon State and Washington State don't exactly look like world beaters. All of that is to say that it's not going to be a thing where week to week I'm like, oh man, the move to the Pac-12 is dead, because that's not just a 2026 move. That's a 10, 15, 20-year move in trying to keep pace in this modern landscape of college athletics. But that is a good question, and I appreciate you clarifying on that one. Finally, Dylan says, Justin, can you comment on Matt Mummy's role? I get Jay is stubborn about play calling. I feel like the game day operation isn't smooth, and we have an associate head coach who seemingly does nothing. I think saying he does nothing is a bit of an overreaction and not necessarily fair to Matt. Him and obviously the quarterbacks coach, Chase Holbrick, they work with the QBs in practice. It's what they do. I mean, there's a lot of position coaches out there whose really their role is to work with their guys. Now, I could get behind the idea of Jay giving up play calling. It's not going to happen. It's be like us saying, I see people saying it with Sean Payton too, because Davis Webb is considered the next great thing. Coaches have egos too, and also it kind of makes sense, right? Like if you were an offensive play caller who got to this point in their career by calling plays, it would be a little bit hard to give that up. In principle, I tend to believe that it's best for a football team when coaches are not calling plays one way or the other, because you get to be more of a CEO type, and maybe that would help cut down with some of the penalties and stuff like that. If, Jay was able to look at it in more the big picture sense and not be locked into the playbook. But I wouldn't anticipate that change, I guess, is what I would say, because I know Jay thought about it at one point last spring. I know that he went so far as to tell Matt Mummy that he would be calling plays, and Matt did call plays throughout spring practices. Why he changed his mind, you'd have to ask him. I don't know if he would even be willing to really say it on record, because that gets weird too. You don't want to throw your guy under the bus if you don't believe in him, that type of stuff like that. It can get a little bit wonky. But I mean, there's a lot of different roles on a coaching staff, and you aren't necessarily seeing everybody's true value to a program in the game day operation, if that makes sense. Like, just because you're not calling plays doesn't mean you don't have value from a day-to-day standpoint. I mean, they spend a lot of time with these players in the film room and on the field and everything else, because, Jay's got to look at the whole team. So that's all I've got for you guys today. I appreciate everybody rocking live with us on YouTube. We'll be going live again Friday, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, to preview that Washington State matchup. This Wazoo team looks a hell of a lot different than the group we saw CSU play back in 2022 and 2023. You don't have Cam Ward back there slinging it. So hopefully a chance. I mean, it's a winnable game. Last I saw, CSU's 6-point favorites in this, and that's coming off of UTSA and Northern Colorado and with a quarterback change. So that tells you what Vegas thinks of Wazoo at the moment. That said, certainly not a team you can overlook. All right, that's all I've got for you guys today. 2-2 is not the end of the world. They've got to get it going here. Thank you for listening to the DNVR Rams podcast presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Much love, y'all. Always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.